You ever felt that sudden chill you get in an old building? That feeling that you are not quite alone. Some places they're just so steeped in tragedy that the past doesn't really fade away. It just kind of lingers, almost etched into the very stones, leaving behind these echoes of the people who were there. Today, we're going to investigate what happens when history refuses to die.
Right, so for centuries, these stories have been passed down. We're talking about tales of sorrow and, let's be honest, pure horror that have basically transformed historical sites into paranormal hotspots. These are the legends that just will not go away.
Okay, so picture this. It's the 1920s, you're at the stunning Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel, a beautiful wedding day. The bride is coming down this huge marble staircase, but her dress, it just brushes against the candle, and in an instant, that celebration turns into an absolute tragedy. She's startled, she stumbles, and she falls to her death. To this day, guests report seeing her ghostly figure still in that white wedding dress, just gliding silently down the very same staircase.
Now, not all these spirits are quite so serene. Over at Chillingham Castle in England, people staying in the infamous Pink Bedroom have reported being woken up at exactly midnight by this piercing, heartbreaking cry. It's the legend of the Radiant Boy, a glowing child whose appearance is said to be an omen, a sign that a violent end is coming for whoever sees him. And then you have some of the most famous figures from history, like Anne Boleyn at the Tower of London. Executed way back in 1536, but her headless ghost is apparently still seen wandering the grounds, carrying her own severed head. It's a grisly legend for sure, but it was born from a place whose cold stone walls have soaked up over 900 years of torture and suffering.
But not all these horrors are just echoes of the past. Some are said to be gateways to something else entirely. At Houska Castle, the legend is that there's a bottomless pit, a portal to hell. The story goes they offered a prisoner a pardon if he'd agree to be lowered inside. He wasn't down there for long before he started screaming. When they pulled him up, his hair had turned completely white, and he died just days later from what could only be described as absolute pure terror.
Okay, but these are just legends, right? Spooky stories from a long time ago? Well, let's pull this into the present day. We're going to look at one woman's pretty harrowing night in what's been called one of the most haunted hotel rooms in all of America.
So meet Sheba Gorman. She didn't really believe in things that go bump in the night, but she was curious. So when she got the chance to stay in room 311 of the Reed House Hotel, a room with this infamous though unconfirmed story of a grisly murder, she and her husband decided, you know what, let's put the legend to the test.
Her mindset going in is really important here. She was not a believer. But as she put it, there was always that little voice in the back of her head asking, what if? She was there to find out one way or another if this stuff was for real.
So at first, the experience was subtle. She felt something grab her wrist, but she kind of brushed it off. It was only later, when they were at dinner, that her husband noticed a large, fresh bruise in the exact same spot. And Sheba says she doesn't bruise easily. This was the first sign that maybe something was very wrong.
Back in the room, things started to escalate. She's lying in bed, and she feels the mattress move. In her words, it felt like someone was tapping it, or even sitting on it and shifting their weight around. She actually managed to capture a little bit of movement on her phone's camera, but her husband, who was asleep next to her, felt nothing.
The real turning point came the next morning. They were packing up, and her husband Tripp, who is a firm skeptic, saw that a cabinet drawer was open. He shut it. 5 minutes later, it was wide open again. He immediately thought his wife was messing with him, playing a trick. She swore she hadn't touched it.
So Tripp, completely convinced that the hotel staff had rigged the drawer, he pulls the whole thing out to look for some kind of mechanism. He found nothing, just wood. He admitted, I started shaking visibly. All I wanted to do was get out of that room. The skeptic was terrified in a matter of minutes.
A personal experience like that, that's powerful. But what about hard evidence? Are there actual, tangible traces of these tragedies left behind for anyone to find?
Let's go back to Chillingham Castle and that legend of the Radiant Boy. For centuries, this was just a story, a terrifying death omen that haunted the Pink Bedroom. It was just a story. That is, until a discovery turned that legend into a horrifying reality.
But what really sets this legend apart is what happened next. So, during a restoration of that very same room, workmen had to break through a wall that was 10 feet thick. And inside, they found something absolutely harrowing.
They found the bones of a young boy right there next to scraps of decaying blue cloth. The remains actually showed signs that the child might have been immured, which means walled in, alive. Suddenly, the ghost story wasn't just a story anymore, it was a documented historical horror.
Physical remains? That's one thing. But what about actually catching a spirit on camera? At the notorious Lizzie Borden house, a group held a seance. An Australian filmmaker was there with them recording everything, hoping that he could visually capture their communion with the dead.
And when they reviewed the night vision footage later, they were just stunned. As one of the guests described it, a tiny orb appears, and then a boy's face. He's there. He's with us. This face becomes a flash of light that just swoops upwards before completely disappearing. Is this it? Is this the tangible proof they were looking for?
Eyewitness accounts, physical remains, video footage. It all seems to point in one direction. But history is complicated, and so is the human mind. So let's look at a case that took the entire world by storm and see if there might be another explanation.
And this brings up the most crucial question of all. Are we really seeing ghosts? Or are we seeing what we want to see? What if these events have a perfectly logical, albeit tragic, explanation?
This is the case of Elisa Lam. Her disappearance from the Cecil Hotel back in 2013 became a huge internet sensation, and it was mainly because of this deeply, deeply unsettling video of her in an elevator. Her erratic behavior, it sparked endless theories of paranormal activity, foul play, you name it.
But from a death investigator's point of view, the case was far from supernatural. Okay, step 1. Lam had bipolar eye disorder, and the toxicology report showed she was severely under-medicating. This could easily trigger a psychotic episode, which would explain her behavior. Step 2. The cadaver dogs couldn't find her because her body was sealed inside a water tank on the roof, which trapped the scent. Step 3. The autopsy found 0 signs of physical trauma or assault. And step 4. Her death was officially ruled an accidental drowning. A terrible, terrible tragedy, but a very human one.
So we have two very different paths to understanding all this. On one side, you have these chilling personal experiences and what seems like unexplainable evidence. And on the other, you have logic and science offering these rational, though often heartbreaking, conclusions.
So where does that leave us? The physical evidence of the boy walled up in Chillingham Castle, that seems undeniable. The pure terror felt by a total skeptic in room 311 is pretty hard to just dismiss. But then, the tragic reality of Elisa Lam's death shows just how easily a supernatural story can be built around very real human suffering. So what is it? Are these restless spirits bound to a place by tragedy, or are they just echoes of the past, resonating not in the hallways but in our own minds? I'll let you be the judge.